Well, I'm thrilled to talk to you today about this event you're facilitating, you've designed, called Men and Money. Tell me something about it.
Well, the best way I could describe Men and Money, Jacob, is that it's kind of, a lot of people think about money, they tend to think about investing tools or managing money and some of the, what I'll call the external aspects of money. And Men and Money is unique in terms of it looks at each individual man and his relationship to money. And it also provides men the opportunity to actually really get honest about how they relate to money, how they relate to their finances, because men have some very unique, men are providers, men are responsible, men have families they want to take care of. And there's an awful lot of men out there right now that when they really get open and get honest inside of themselves, they have relationships to money that are holding them back from really being great fathers, great husbands, great providers, and great contributors to their community. So the real focus of Men and Money is to help men to be more successful, to feel more powerful, through really being honest and recognizing their relationship to money.
Mike, so this training's for men, but could it also be for women, or could it be for men and women?
Well, the kind of work that we do, as you know, Jacob, the work that I do, and the focus of this can be for anybody. And the work that I've done for 20 years is for men and women. But we've designed Men and Money specifically for men for a couple of reasons. One is that men deal with some pretty unique challenges around money. They tend to be providers, they tend to be very responsible, and men tend to hold things in and not let them out. And so we actually create a space here for men to really look at their relationship to money as the provider, as the one who's responsible for their family, oftentimes financially, and to create really a safe space, a place where men can be with men, a place, a trusting environment where men feel comfortable to talk about what's going on in their life, what's happening with their money, and also what's going on inside of them about money, such that we can kind of free up that space for them to access really where they're coming from, what their relationship to money is, and how they can be more effective. So we really work with this for men only to give them the opportunity to really make a breakthrough. Sometimes it's tough for men to do in a mixed audience.
What are some of the themes that have shown up in the trainings? What have you noticed?
Well, one of the things that I notice is that as men begin to open up and are willing to take a look, oftentimes men will begin to look at things that they haven't looked at before. And the themes are kind of, we take them through a journey, which is, let's start with the external. Like, so how much money is in your bank account, and how much debt do you have, and have you planned well for your future? And we look at some of those kinds of things. But then we say, now, what's your story inside of you? What do you think about that, and what do you feel about that? And as men go to, oftentimes men haven't really acknowledged fully some of what's there. A lot of men, some men, they hold some shame around the fact that, I thought I'd be further along at this point. I thought I'd be at a point where I could kind of relax a little bit, but I'm still struggling. Or I don't feel like I'm providing for my family the way I want to. Or, I'm looking at another man out there who I see as more successful than I am, and I feel, I feel some resentment for the fact that he's doing better than I am. And just begin to acknowledge those things. And as that deepens, and that level of deepening creates an honesty, one of the big things is men just get honest with themselves. And as they get honest with themselves, we begin to create the space to make real change in terms of what their internal beliefs are, and the way they tend to think about money in ways they hadn't thought about before. Like my father was very tight with money. My parents fought about money, and that got in me in terms of belief systems in me about things like there's not enough money, and how do I relate to money. And so as I lead these programs, I also do the programs. I'm side by side with the men I'm working with, and so I continue to get value about what those beliefs are inside of me, and what's the source of the way that I relate to money, and how it can be more effective and come from a more prosperous and more abundant context when I deal with money.
What is the organization that's producing this?
Well, this particular Men and Money event on March 23rd is actually being sponsored by what's called MDI. And MDIsuccess.com is their website. And MDI is an organization of men throughout North America who connect together and create teams together on which they can do not just with money, but in all areas of their life, where they can actually support one another, to be more effective husbands, more effective fathers, contribute more fully in their communities, and just be more successful, more compassionate, and more powerful men.
Mike, can you tell me a little about your background, some of the other work you've done?
Well, you mentioned early on, really for about the last 20 years I've been involved in personal awareness or personal growth trainings and development. I also do coaching and consulting. And so I've had the opportunity to actually design and deliver and facilitate seminars and trainings all over the world. Over the course of the last couple of years, I've stayed closer to home in terms of being closer to my family, but I had a period of time where I had the unique opportunity to travel to places like Siberia and the Middle East and South America and Eastern and Western Europe to deliver programs that were really designed, not really very similar to the Men and Money. I mean, we work with audiences, but the focus is on, you know, what's going on inside of you. Like, who are you? What are the beliefs you hold? What success mean to you? What's the unique way that you want to express yourself in the world, and how can you be successful and live a fulfilling life? And that's been the focus of the work that I've done. And again, it's really the focus of Men and Money, because on some level, it's about money, but what it's really about is how can you be a successful man? How can you live a fulfilled life? And how can you have a relationship to money, abundance, and prosperity that you can feel confident, strong, hopeful, and powerful as a man?
I think what's been interesting is I've heard about your program. You know, people have heard about the thing, The Secret, or they've heard about the work of Abrahams, or, you know, there's all these different groups out there doing different things around self-awareness. It feels like this program makes it much more practical in the place where it really matters.
But I like what you said about practical, because my intent is to take something that begins in a place that is not as tangible. So when we begin to look at beliefs, and we begin to look at feelings, and we look at the stories in our heads and what we're thinking about, those sometimes feel like we can't put a handle on it. And most men need to touch and feel. You know, they want something physical. So it's taking that, but bringing it into these practical tools, connecting men one-to-one so that they can connect and really get a relationship with other men as they do this, and then giving them really concrete things that they can do and take action on so that we can take this and make it practical. Almost all of us, what we need is we can have a lot of these nice ideas out there, but they need to be brought down and boiled down to something which says, what can I do today to be more effective with money? And that's really, we take this kind of big idea of this inside out, but we bring it down to say, oh, I can do this, this, and this today, and by the end of the day, I'm going to be more effective. The gift of it is having men, you know, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, to feel free and powerful as men and be more successful, as I mentioned, in their life, more successful husbands, more successful fathers, more successful professionally, you know, contributing to their communities. And so on some level, their relationship to money makes a difference with all of that.
So after the training's over, how will men bring this into their lives? So after the night's done, everyone goes home. What's left over? Where do men go from there?
Well, I think that there's two main things to talk about there, and I think it's important for every kind of training, which is the men, when the men leave, ideally, and one of the things that we'd like to create from the March 23rd event is if there's men, and there will be men in the room who are not part of a men's community or men's team, or have a good, even just a good friend that they can connect to, I would love to see the men coming out of that room somehow to have a relationship with another man or someone they can really trust, so that they can be and continue the conversation. They can continue to share about some of the stuff that they don't tend to share about, because that's very valuable. So one is having some kind of support around them, or someone or some team of men that they can connect into, that they can trust, they can be open and honest with, and are going to support them to be more effective. The other one are these series of very practical tools that we will actually give. So the men will actually get a list of very specific tools of which they can choose. And we're going to invite them at the end of the evening to say, which ones do you want to put into action in your life, and how are you going to do that? I'm a big believer in not giving men too much. They'll have a list, but I'm going to suggest start small. Start with one or two of these. You live busy lives. Don't try to take on a lot all at once. But we have tools that literally take 10, 15 seconds a day. And if you just do that consistently over a period of time, it can begin to make a shift in terms of your relationship to money and your effectiveness.
I really got it when one time we were talking. You talked about just going from just simply from the mentality of scarcity to abundance.
I love the way you said that, because really that is the core goal of our program, is to take the innermost beliefs or context that each man holds inside of him and shift that over time from one that comes from a place of there's not enough, kind of the scarcity thing you mentioned, like, you know, and that we know we have that when we get fear, when we begin to look at, wait, the bills show up and I'm afraid I won't be able to pay them, or how am I, you know, where am I going to be in a year, or that all comes out of a belief that, of lack or scarcity, and then shift that over time into this place of beginning to recognize, wait a minute, you know, abundance and prosperity are very possible to me. Not only are they possible, but that actually, I actually suggest that that's a more natural way to actually live from. And how we can help men to shift to that place so that as they get there, they naturally begin to produce results in their life that are more abundant, more prosperous, and bring a greater flow of money in for them, for their families, and for the people they care about.
I noticed you mentioned families. Are these your daughters up here?
Actually, these are my daughters. This is my older daughter, Sophia Grace, and my younger daughter, Brianna. And this was taken about 5 years ago. And you'll notice them holding up, they're holding up their names in Chinese, because we were actually in China on a trip at that point in time. And yes, they are. And you know, I have to tell you, if you want, let's talk about abundance for a moment. So, you know, this is men and money. But really, we invite men into, you know, looking at abundance and how do you live from a place of greater abundance. And so we start with money, but one of the things that we work with is appreciation and gratitude. And money, you know, when we look at money, we begin to connect into this place of abundance. We begin to recognize that, well, if I want to look how abundant my life is, you know, money is only one piece of it. And we actually support men to look around and see what matters to them. I mean, I don't want to get into all the details of the tools, but one of the things we ask men to do is say, what's already in your life that you're grateful for? Yeah. Big one. Secondly, we ask, what's on purpose for you? What is your purpose as a man? Because money serves primarily to serve a purpose. Money that tends not to be the end result we're going for. I could put you in a room filled with a bunch of $100 bills and it might be fun for an hour or so, but there's not a whole lot you can do with it. That money needs to serve a purpose for you. So what are you going to do with that money, and how does it serve your purpose? Very important for men, and we spend some time on this in the training about, you know, what's your purpose and what are you going to use the money for? Because if you're not clear about that, the money doesn't tend to show up as readily. But if you're clear, this is my purpose in terms of me as a man and me as a person, and also here's how that money is going to serve that purpose. Here's how this money is going to support me in what's important in my life, then money will tend to flow much more naturally.
On a slightly different topic, I heard you just finished writing a book.
And an awful lot of men out there can relate to being fathers, but fathers take on a lot of roles. In my family, I spent a lot of time with my daughters, and my wife did a fair amount of the working. And so what I found in my journey, first of all, being naturally interested in personal development, plus all my time with my daughters, was constantly the lessons I was learning from them and being with them over the course of the years. And so I actually collected a whole series of notes and insights and things that I noticed, and we'll actually be publishing my book in a couple of months called Insights of a Father, from about a decade of really being the student in terms of being with my two daughters.
So, Mike, as we begin to wrap this up, what else would you like to add just to bring this to a close?
Well, I'd like to say to those of you that are actually watching the video is if you can make it to March 23rd, be there. It's going to be a great evening. If you're not able to be there, two other possibilities. Certainly find someone, if you don't already have them in your life, that you can be open and honest with in terms of your relationship to money. It can be very powerful to share some of that. And finally, feel free to get in touch with me. I have a Men and Money email list that I'd be glad to include you on. So those would be the main things I'd invite you to do, and I want to thank you, Jacob, for the opportunity to talk about this important program.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's great to be with you, and I'm looking forward to the event.
Thank you.